Welcome back to the SimTech podcast, the show where we look behind the scenes of clinical simulation and talk to the people who make it happen. Today, we're joined by Sara, a clinical teaching fellow who's right in the middle of turning an idea into reality, getting an in-situ package off the ground. If you've ever tried to take simulation out of the centre and into real clinical environments, you'll know it's not just about the scenarios in the kit, it's about logistics, buy-in, culture, and navigating the realities of a busy NHS service. In this episode, we'll talk about where the idea came from, the challenges of setting up an in-situ simulation from scratch, what's going well so far, and what's been harder than expected. We'll also explore how simulation technicians can support projects like this and why in-situ work can be such a powerful tool for learning systems, testings, and patient safety. So whether you're a SimTech, educator, or clinician thinking about taking simulation into clinical workspace, this one, it's for you. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the SimTech podcast. Today we're going to be looking at the term called in-situ or in-situ, depending on who you are or how posh you are. And to do that, I've brought along a very special guest. Special guest, introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Sara. I'm the clinical simulation teaching fellow at Durham and Darlington.
And how long have you been doing that?
About 4 or 5 months now.
And what did you do before you was a doctor? Did you have a civvy job, what I call civvy?
Before I was a doctor, no, I didn't really do very much. I did a lot of volunteering before I was a doctor, and I had a job in research for about a year whilst I was in medical school. But before I was a clinical teaching fellow, I was just a bog standard foundation doctor. Nothing too exciting.
Now, I heard an interesting fact about you is that you didn't really like simulation growing up. So you're a little bit of a convert.
Yeah, I would say that I was a convert. I don't think I really understood what the purpose of simulation was outside of being a test.
So you was only ever a participant. So you saw it from that side of the curtain.
Yeah. So this is my first time sort of being faculty, or as you say, seeing behind the curtain and running the process.
But that can't be true because you would have had to apply for it before. So did you not like it before you applied, or did something go, actually, this is something what I want to be involved in?
So before I applied, I hadn't really actually done any simulation from the back, but something had changed, which is I had come to Durham and Darlington and seen that simulation wasn't actually about testing. I think the way that simulation is done for medical students is it can be quite different depending on what your objectives are. And, as you start quite junior in medical school, it's kind of about practicing basic skills. It's about doing the performance and sort of practicing for your OSCEs and being a clinician, which sort of feels test adjacent. And that was the majority of simulation that I'd experienced, really. And it was very much an environment where, they're doing too well, or this is clearly too easy for them, let's make it challenging, rather than, okay, they've achieved the learning objectives, great, let's move on to the next thing. And I felt that was not a very sort of, I don't feel like that's necessarily the most conducive learning environment. It's not psychologically very safe, is it? You feel like you're going to go in and you're going to be tested. Whereas I came to Durham and Darlington as a foundation doctor, and it wasn't necessarily about, it was challenging. The simulations are challenging, but they're challenging in a different way. It's not about, do you know how to be a clinician? It's about, do you know how your ability to be a clinician is affected by what's going on around you when you have human factors involved, which I think as a medical student, I definitely didn't appreciate the value of that, because I was very much like I'm a medical student. I want to be a doctor. I need to pass. I need to know how to diagnose PE, chest infection, heart attack, whatever. So doing the simulation was just, can I do those things? And then you become a doctor and you're actually on the shop floor and you know how to diagnose those things, but actually things that you don't know are, well, how is my ability to diagnose those things made different or reduced or improved when I'm in a team that's not working efficiently, or when I'm stressed because something has happened at home, or when I don't know, I've just been to a cardiac arrest and I've not had time to debrief it, or something of that nature, which I think these are things that affect us all on a day-to-day basis at work. And that's what kind of made it click for me. I was like, actually, simulation is not about, can I diagnose an MI as an F1? It's, what do I do when I have an MI and a stroke happening at the same time? My med reg is busy and my nurse is not helpful, or I'm not helpful and my nurse is really worried, for example. And that made it interesting for me, because then it's not about your ability to do theory. It's about your ability to actually be a good clinician and work in an effective team.
Yeah, I mean, human factors is it's almost magic, isn't it? And although you'd probably know it's happening, but once you have, or you sit through a lesson on human factors, you then start mirroring it against things that might have happened. I mean, do you see human factors issues now arising clinically where you might not have seen them before?
Yes, yeah. I think I'm a lot more aware of them than I was
Mm.
before. And I think it makes you a lot more, I think, forgiving in a way of situations not working out the way that you want them to, because you're almost able to see the layers of complexity that contributes towards problems. And I think it gives you a much more sort of three-dimensional approach to problem solving as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've also started doing it in socially as well. So I recognise human factors in real life,
Yeah,
with relationships and children and those
yeah.
kind of things. I start noticing it in those kind of situations as well. Do you have a favourite part of simulation? What's your favourite bit?
Um, wow, I've never thought of that,
I mean, what really pulls you in? Where's your, oh yeah, it's that day. Is there a favourite course, or is there a favourite part of the day that you really look forward to?
I don't think I have. I mean, there's still some courses I've not done actually, so with us. So I don't necessarily think I have a favorite course yet, but I think, oh, this is going to sound so cheesy, but I think there is a moment when you're watching a scenario and the participant gets it. They suddenly
Mm.
hit that learning objective that is maybe a hidden sort of learning objective, and you think, yeah, they've cracked it. They're going down the right way. Whether they figured out that the scenario is actually about the conflict, or the scenario is about, I don't know, a red herring observation or something like that, and you finally see all of the pieces sort of align. That's quite satisfying, because it means that the scenario has been built in a way that actually promotes the learning objective direction that you're going in, and that's quite satisfying. Um, and it kind of plays into that whole, actually, we're trying to promote learning. We actually want our participants to succeed, and it gives you a little burst of dopamine when they actually hit that. But there are obviously some scenarios that are way more fun as faculty than they were as participants. Um, I think anytime we have to mimic clinical signs, and I've got to get my hands sort of dirty, as some of our colleagues like to say, and put some moulage on, and
Mm.
subtle things like making a leg look slightly red and noticing the participant notice that is quite satisfying. Um, any scenario where you get to be drunk or confused is really fun to play. It's just so fun. I think we have a lot of fun behind the scenes, obviously between the control room and the confed, trying to make each other laugh, trying to get silly phrases in. But it's amazing because it doesn't actually impact the participant at all, because they're so absorbed in what they're doing that they don't even realize that we might be having our own game in the background, or we're too busy being drunk or putting a wig on to look like an old person, or wearing the echo mask, or those things are always great. Simulated conflict is also always really fun.
Although quite challenging for those people that not that way inclined.
Yeah, I mean, I can think of one scenario in particular that I find quite difficult. I Although I come across as quite confident to some people, I find it quite difficult to be sort of quote unquote the bad guy in the scenario.
Mm.
We have one with the preceptorship nurses, where I, as a clinician, desperately want to get an NG tube down a patient, and the nurses are uncomfortable, and I'm just going to go and do it anyway. And I find it so difficult to play that role, because it just feels very against my nature. Even though, from a human factors point of view, I can understand why a doctor might be in that position. I've got six patients to see, and I'm really worried about this patient and electrolyte imbalance, blah blah blah. But it feels like I feel a bit uncomfortable even after I've debriefed the scenario. But then we have other ones which are so fun. The DKA one. No, not DKA. We have an insulin prescription one where two sort of healthcare professionals are sort of beefing it out over what the correct prescription is, and it's really funny to have escalated conflict until someone can de-escalate it. And people obviously respond to it at different times, so sometimes we can get very carried away.
But that's the great thing about simulation, is that although there's a very serious nature behind it all, it's sometimes all right to have a little bit of fun into it.
Yeah, and that again is something that I hadn't really thought about until I started working behind the scenes. I don't think I'd really appreciated that. Yes, it's very much for the participant, but it's also for the people who are watching in the debrief room. I hadn't really thought about the entertainment factor. I thought about learning objectives, which we're obviously trained to do from, birth, essentially, as soon as you hit school. But hadn't thought about how actually, in order to absorb the value of the simulation, you also need to be engaged.
Yeah, I mean, we often look into the debrief room sometimes, and we can just tell when they've, one, had enough,
Yeah.
or two, us as faculty are not hitting the mark with a scenario for whatever reason. It's made us really look internally at some of the scenarios. And I know you've been very busy creating or rewriting or just making little tweaks to certain scenarios to just get the most out of them. Although, like you said, the learning objectives are mostly solid, but sometimes it's just, they don't really think about the entertainment value, do they? It's just a little bit, let's just do A to E kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we brought you here to talk about In-Situ. I mean, let's start by being very boring, and how do we define what In-Situ is compared to what we say a traditional face-to-face simulation is, and where do you think the differences are?
I think ultimately it boils down to what you are trying to achieve. For me, In-Situ is taking simulation and putting it into an environment that people are already in. So people can come to the sim center. It's a fixed space. They know that they're going to come in and do sim. They know what's going to happen more or less. They're going to come in, they're going to do a course, whether it's simulation or VR or games or whatever, it's going to be that. They know what to expect. It's a whole sort of block of a day or even a half day, and it's kind of removed from the workplace. So we talk about things like how the workplace impacts it, human factors, environmental factors, but they are sort of abstract in a way because they're put into sort of concentrated simulation scenarios, and then we debrief it afterwards. Whereas In-Situ might only be the whole thing might only be 15 minutes. They do a 5 minutes and we debrief it for 10, for example. And then they go back to work. And the way that I sort of see it is In-Situ is about testing the environment or the systems in place. It's not necessarily about assessing learning necessarily. It could be if we're trying to test whether a policy has been taught properly, but it's about checking that system, if anything, is testing whether the teaching has been done properly, for example.
So why can't you do this in the simulation center? I mean, if we're saying actually you're testing the environment, is the building that they're training in their real workspace, it's important that they're doing the training where they work, and that's why we can't replicate it in a sim room.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. And I mean, this is our sim center for the whole trust, and they'll be working in multiple different parts of the trust. And some of them are in the community, which is not, and these things are not replicable. I mean, if you're testing a system that's like, how efficient is it to get to the crash trolley and back? Well, our crash trolley is right outside our sim. It's in our sim room, so it doesn't really replicate if your crash trolley is down the corridor in a different room, for example. Or I don't know, if you're trying to see how easy it is for people to escalate deteriorating patient to a senior, and your senior is actually in a different building. Well, that's a completely different system than in the sim suite where they would just pick up the phone and just phone through to the control room, for example. It ultimately depends on what it is that you're trying to test. But I think as well, if we're really talking about like experiential learning, even testing training things is very different to doing things in the real world. When you learn as a medical student to take blood, you go to a little room, they have an arm set up and they have all the kit ready for you. And then suddenly you're an F1 and I ask you to take blood, and everything is about 70 times longer than it was when you were a medical student, because actually I don't know the code to get into the room to get the equipment, and I don't know where the sharps bins are kept, so I can't actually take the blood until I've got a sharps bin, and I've got 70 other jobs to do at the same time, and also there's a ward round going on, and there's no table and there's no pillow to lean the arm up, and suddenly that thing that you knew how to do is so much more complex for things that, like, because of things that are completely out of your control, and things that you haven't prepared for. So even something as simple as, I can take blood. I've been able to do that since I was a medical student. But if you take me to a new hospital, to an unfamiliar place, it becomes far more complicated. And then that suddenly reveals, actually, maybe we should induce, when they come to induction, we should tell the F1s how to get the equipment.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment we do a little bit of in-situ, don't we? And what's the problem with it at the moment?
I guess it depends what your goal is. So the in-situ that we're doing at the moment is successful, but it's very much just skills. If anything, it's skills drills. Can you manage a PPH on the obstetrics ward? Do you know what to do if a child starts to have an asthma attack? It's not actually, if you talk about sort of an audit or a PDSA cycle, it's not really resulting in improvement of a process. Yes, it means that people are trained, and that is valuable. There is value in that, especially if we're talking about less common presentations that doctors and nurses and other healthcare professionals need to be aware of how to manage. Things like a full-blown pediatric anaphylaxis, we all know how to deal with in theory, but actually seeing, even if it's a mannequin, in a florid state of anaphylaxis can evoke some sort of fear. And if they might not see one in their entire time at the trust, it's good to practice it. Or even an anaesthetist doing a pediatric cardiac arrest, for example, they need to know how to manage it. But ultimately, my sort of big dream goal would be to put in situ so that we can utilize it as a way to improve patient safety by improving the systems. And yes, I'm sure we can all agree that improving the way that clinicians do skills is ultimately going to improve patient safety, because someone who has practiced something will feel better at it. It's a very nebulous concept, especially if they then never encounter that in real life. Whereas if we have identified problems on wards already, we can fix those in theory using in situ. That's the ultimate. I think that's like the next step that we're not quite hitting at the moment with our in situ at the moment.
So how do you get there then? I mean, you're talking all about these different teams that need to be involved. So for instance, you need patient safety on board. You also need the wards or wherever the improvement needs to happen. I mean, how do you get there?
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be easy. Yeah. There's a lot of people who we need to sort of get on board, who needs to get on board with the plan. I think the big one is patient safety. We can run sort of in situ on any ward and find out what the problems are, but it's like replicating work that's already been done. When the patient safety team will already know what the problems are, and they'll already have key areas that they think that the trusts need to work on. And we've started sort of, baby steps there by actually speaking to some of the members of the patient safety team and say, like, well, actually, what do you think the biggest problems are in this department? But in terms of the actual logistics of doing in situ, you need a lot of buy-in. I mean, even I, as a simulation convert, didn't like sim. So if someone came onto my ward and was like, right, we're doing sim, I'd be like, okay, well,
I'm too busy now.
Yeah, so I've got seven patients to see, and portfolio, and I haven't had lunch. I've not been to the toilet in like 7 hours, so now seems like a good time. And I think a lot of it comes from poor experiences that people have had with sim, and also the belief that ultimately we're testing them. People do not like to be tested.
But as you've said, we're not realistically testing them. We're testing the environment and the systems around them. But they don't see it from that angle, do they? Mm-hmm. Because they're used to what we'll call traditional simulation, where they are used to being in the limelight.
Exactly.
Actually, it's not about them.
Yeah, and also, if we're really talking about systems, we'll have to record things like how long does it take to,
Yeah.
I don't know, find the right eye gel, or how long is it taking to contact the right registrar, or whatever it is that, whatever system that you want to test. And if they see someone sat down with a clipboard writing things down, it's difficult to not feel like you're being tested. So there is an element of trust there that is going to be difficult to get. But I mean, there is a sort of, light at the end of the tunnel, which is some departments are already interested in doing in situ, and some departments have already been doing it. So it's you have to start with your easy wins, but so that people can see, well, actually, they've been doing it in A&E or maternity or wherever it is that has, that favorability, and they didn't feel like they were being tested, for example. But I think it's one of these, it's a project essentially where you have to be willing to accept that the first couple of goes are not going to be as successful as you'd like, because you need to get the word out, and we need to build our reputation as a non-testing, psychologically safe sim environment. And some of that will start with easy wins. And if we're able to show, well, we did this and this was the result, and when we tried something and it made it better, I think it would be difficult for ward managers to then say, well, there's no value in it, especially if we're solving problems that they have pointed out are difficult on their own ward. So you have to play to the people that you're trying to sell it to as well. But yes, there's a lot of variables, and even basic things like moving kit around, like planning to do an in situ and then suddenly being hit with the fact that the room that we were going to use is now no longer available because there's a sick patient, and being prepared for sort of a stop-start kind of momentum, I think, is going to be necessary.
Yeah, you certainly have to be flexible in your approach, because there's just too many unknowns there. There's a lot of variables,
Absolutely.
and one thing could go wrong, and but because of that, it can really dent morale, can't it?
Yeah. There's no two ways about that. And I think as well, telling people that, well, we're just going to have to try and run the project with the view that all the work might happen, and then on the day we go in and actually the bed that we were going to use is now filled with a patient, so we have to pack up and go, it's a difficult sell. Especially because there's so many moving parts. In an ideal world, every ward or even every department would have their own kit, and we just go to the hospital and get their kit and bring it up, and we have nice little portable cameras and nice little mics, and then we just film as we need, if we need to, or just have a little observer, and then we pack up and go. And it's not as high effort as it is at the moment, which is all the mannequins live here, or most of the mannequins live here, and a lot of the kit lives here, and we don't really know what the kit is out on the wards and things like that. And that makes it harder, definitely. Because I think if we told people that we're going to drag all this kit out and then we didn't even do the sim because of, I don't know, clinical demand, it would be, I can imagine people getting frustrated and giving up on the plan. But I think you have to be prepared for that, really. If you truly want it to work, you have to be prepared for that to happen, and just start again and do it again next month or next week or whenever.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many moving parts. It's inevitable that you're going to have some failures in some respects, aren't you?
Yeah.
But it's really important that we don't take it to heart
Yeah.
and let it affect future work.
Hmm.
Because there is real value here, isn't there?
I think it has the potential to be really useful, yes. And I think it is it's a proper like plan, do, study, act that has actual value. It's not just doing a project for the sake of doing a project, which I will admit junior doctors are very, resident doctors, I should say, are very good at doing, because we have to do them for our portfolios and things. And it would be really great to actually put something in that would show some change, even if it's small scale, because it's only based on one ward, but that's beneficial. Because at the end of the day, it's patients on the ward, well, even if it's only 20 or 30, it's better than having no impact at all.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really important is momentum and consistency, because what you're describing is really, it's inconvenient.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah.
Time consuming. So it's really easy just to go, this month I just can't be bothered, and then before you know it, the whole project's dwindled, and people on the other side have lost interest, and that's generally how in situ has been going from us. It goes well for a couple of times, and then on that in situ day that we got booked in, something happens, and then it's cancelled.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, it's another month before we do it, and then something happens on that day.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to take your foot off the gas, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's difficult as well when we're the only team doing it. I mean, the real long-term goal would be people running their own in situ that we assist with rather than we have to orchestrate, and that would remove a lot of the moving parts. But we're not there yet. That is like a real pipe dream for us at the moment. But I think if we were able to give people the tools to understand why it's valuable and also how to set it up, it wouldn't be as difficult logistically for people to do it on their own ward.
Yeah.
Ask faculty to act as a patient, or if you have mannequins, then you can use a mannequin if that's appropriate, and then test whatever system you're testing.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds almost like keeping it really simple and taking your easy wins first,
Definitely.
and not relying on fancy equipment and all this stuff, because
You don't need it.
you don't, do you? And what you really need is you just need people to turn up with good attitudes on the day.
Yes, which is easier said than
Yeah.
done.
I mean, who are your stakeholders? Who are your go-to guys on the day? Who are your champions?
Yeah, the
that
sim
are making this
champion.
work?
I think there are definitely a few departments that lend themselves towards being a sim champion in our trust. I mean, A&E are very good. They've always had a strong link to sim. Maternity are really sort of holding their own at the moment as well, probably because maternity do a lot of skills drills. But I think from a patient safety point of view, maternity have always got their finger on the pulse on how to make things better because of how maternity is. And there are people who are interested in both departments in doing stuff. Anesthetics and theatres are another one. And they have sort of their own agendas in terms of doing in situ. So it would be sort of a meeting them halfway kind of thing.
Is there anybody who's not involved who you'd love to see involved? I mean, is there anybody out there that you can see, there's real value for this guy or this department, but they're just so not invested, or it's too much hard work to get these guys off the ground?
I mean, I think there's always going to be people who just don't understand simulation as a modality of education. So because they don't understand it, they don't see the value of doing it. I mean, I do think that in the long term, I want to be a surgeon. And I feel like surgery is one of the departments that we don't see at all within Sim Center. I don't think I've ever seen a surgical consultant in here. And I mean, if we're really being honest, the human factors is not it's not specialty specific. It's not even really career specific. As you were saying, you see it in day-to-day life. You can see it in any career. So why aren't we getting them in? What do they not think they're getting? And that is something that I think would be really interesting to look at. But we also have a penchant for taking on lots of projects at the same time because we get very excited.
Do you know what I see? I see, again, I use this word champion, but for instance, if you have someone that is really interested in that speciality, that's all it takes is that one person. And I see it around here. You wonder why anaesthetics is so involved in sim, but then you look at the people that are heads of simulation,
and loads of anaesthetists,
and it becomes really obvious why they're doing well at sim, because they've got those people who are leading the way. But as you've said, if no one from surgery is interested, then it's hard to get your foot in the door.
Yeah, and I think as well, probably some of it is to do with the way that we teach these specialties. Even maternity, anaesthetics, A&E, they are more familiar with sort of task trainers because they can't practice on people all the time. And I think when you are already sort of taught to use and see task trainers as people, as a sort of pretend patients, it's less of a jump to then go and look at a mannequin or a fully fledged mannequin with functionality and treat them as a person. And then it's less of a jump to then treat high fidelity simulation as if it's real. Whereas I'm not sure that every specialty has that if they're not using loads and loads of task trainers. It's almost like it's just not a massive extension of their imagination. And I think because of that, they already feel a little bit more comfortable when they're in the sim center. I mean, you see it with we've had a lot of anesthetic days recently, and I think the anesthetic participants in particular are a lot more engaged with sim than sort of some of our foundation doctors, for example, who have all sorts of interests. Especially if the they are, you know, they tend to be volunteers as well, which I think makes a difference.
Oh yeah, you can't train enthusiasm
No,
these days,
yeah,
and you can tell someone who is really passionate about simulation. It really
yeah,
makes a difference, doesn't it?
definitely, definitely.
Um, is this a problem we could fix with money? If I gave if I gave you loads of money, do you think the In-Situ program would benefit from that?
Um, I mean, money is not going to buy enthusiasm about sim, but money would make things probably smoother. You know, if in a dream world where we had our own van and porters and loads of mannequins and a kit that we could store at each site so that we weren't dragging kit from site to site, it would be easier. Of course it would.
But it
Um,
still won't fix the fundamental
no,
issues that we have
no.
with it.
It would make things logistically easier, maybe, but it wouldn't fix people's attitudes, which is probably going to be the first real major hurdle. Um,
I mean, where are your risks for this going wrong? I mean, you're saying all these, you know, there's loads of barriers,
mm.
but where's the biggest risk? Where's the biggest challenge for this?
I mean, the biggest risk I would say is that we get everything sorted and we go to run a day and then we have to cancel it. And then people are just like, well, this is a waste of time. And they are no longer interested in participating because this is not something that we could do even as a team, as a core simulation faculty team. We can't do it, just the five of us. It's not possible. And also, we don't exist in the environments that we want to test. I guess, as with any sort of test, there's always a chance that it shows no improvement. And that would be really, really horrendous. But I mean, in a way, all learning is valuable. So even if I don't know, we identified that it took too long to get to the crash trolley in this simulation, we moved the crash trolley to a different place, reran it, and it took the same amount of time. Well, either the location that we've picked is not right, or we're not actually tackling the correct factor. So it addresses, you know, it makes you think about what the issues are in a different way. So I guess in a way, even that learning is valuable, but it makes it a more drawn out process, and maintaining interest over a long time is quite difficult.
I mean, that's why you said it's really important to get an early win under your belt in it, so
Yes.
people
Yeah.
can use that to go forward. Yeah, I understand that. I mean, what have you learnt then through planning and trying to get this In-Situ off the ground? Because remember that you are a non-simulation enthusiast, so it's really easy for you to see it from the other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, how did we fix your attitude and bring you on, and how do we move that forward to other people that less simulation enthusiasts?
Yeah. I don't know. I think about this a lot. You know, what was it that actually sort of turned me on to simulation? Because even when I applied for this job, you'll laugh now, but I remember thinking, oh, I'm not sure that I want to be the CTF in the sim center. I think I'd rather be doing undergraduate stuff, because I remember doing that and I don't have a lot of sim experience. But now that I'm here, I feel like this was always meant to be the right spot for me, because it sort of challenges my way of thinking about learning, which I think is really valuable as things continue to move on. I think we have to accept that we're not going to win everyone over, first of all. There are some people who just are not going to be able to understand it, and that's fine. That's always going to be the case. I think as well, it's we get a lot of this in our world, which is we think of an idea, people are like, oh yeah, that sounds really good, let's do it. And then you actually start to plan it and people don't reply to emails, they don't come to meetings. And I think the most important thing that I've learned is that if I think something is valuable, or if we think something is valuable, we just have to do it. It does not matter if the first 2 times no one, like 3 people turn up. Okay, that's 3 more people than if we waited 6 months for someone to reply to our email. I think you have to really just do it. And I have always been a bit of a procrastinator, but I have really been trying since I've started this job to just say, well, you know what? I think our old simulation template is rubbish. Let's make a new one. So then I just did it. And we've been talking about it for ages and ages, but no one's actually just done it. And yeah, it was a lot of work, and it would have been way easier if I had more people doing it, but I've done it, and now actually it's more useful and it's easier to do it now. And with a bit more time and effort, we're getting a little bit more interest. Or even little things like when you guys started doing VR, you probably found that was like pulling teeth because no one wanted to do it.
It took me 6 months. I had all the equipment for 6 months before I got people to buy into doing the first video.
Yeah, well, I mean, 6 months is crazy. And then look at the last one that you did, and that took way less. I mean, obviously, it's still logistically very challenging, but people were ready. They were interested in coming, and you had a great team, and you had a successful video. And it one day, not even a full day of filming, and you sorted it. And yeah, okay, it's taken a while to get there, but you did get there. So it's just about starting. You just have to start, otherwise, you're never going to get anywhere. And I think you have to be realistic about timelines. This is not something that's going to be sorted in a year or 2 years. It's probably going to take a long time to get across to multiple
So you're
departments.
saying that this might even be a job that you have to pass over to the next CTF? I mean, what does success look like for you in 12 months, 2 years? Where would you like to be?
I mean, I think ultimately this is a project that is going to have to exist without me. The CTFs rotate every year. Sometimes they stay for 2 years. It would be great if we were doing regular in situ in even one department within a year. That would be my ultimate goal. I think it sounds like a small goal. Maybe it would be nice if we could do it in multiple departments, but I think logistically we have to just start somewhere. By the end of 2 years, I would love to be doing regular in situ sim in 2 departments probably, and maybe even encouraging those departments to run their own in situs without us. Like if they could turn around and say, we want to run an in situ on this, can you guys come and help us with the kit? That would be amazing. Rather than us being like, right, we want to do in situ in your department.
Yeah, now help us, yeah.
Yeah.
Because essentially we're pushing out, we're trying to make this happen, but it would be great to at least hand over to them one day.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so coming up to the end of our time, I want you to make a prediction to future Sara, where we're going to do this in 6 months.
God.
Where are we going to be in 6 months' time? So we'll do one just before June, July, summertime, before we break up for summer. Where do you think we'll be in 6 months' time?
Oh, I'm scared to say because I don't want me in 6 months to be like, well, that was an embarrassing
Well,
prediction.
then let's be realistic. Let's not bite off too much.
6 months. Honestly, in 6 months, I would be happy if we had done maybe 3 or 4 in situs. My ideal, like if I could have whatever I wanted, it would be 3 in situs in 2 departments. It doesn't necessarily matter which ones, but I think that is a lot of work in 6 months. So I'm going to say 3 in situs in a department.
All right.
That's my goal.
If someone's listening and people have gone through this problem or have fixed this problem, what would you want from them? How could other people, do you think, could help us? I mean, there must be other hospitals, other sim centres going through these same kind of problems. Is it something we've just got to fix ourselves, or do you think other people could help us?
I'm sure every sim center under the sun has had problems with people not being interested in sim and people not seeing, not just seeing us coming onto the wards and being like, right, I'm out of here. So I think if anyone has ever delivered any in situ or tried to sort of get their simulation center out there, like how do you get over, or what things have you done to encourage people to sort of get over the fear of joining in? And what do you do when you're trying to get to people who aren't sim champions?
Yeah, all right. So like I say, I'll leave your contact information in the episode description. So if people want to reach out, either if you want to collab or, if people are going through the same experiences or even want to learn from us and how we're doing it, feel free to reach out to us. But apart from that, Sara, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. And we'll look forward to seeing you in 6 months.
Oof.
All right. Ta-ra. A huge thank you to Sara for sharing her experiences as a clinical teaching fellow and giving us an honest look at what it really takes to get an in-situ simulation package off the ground. From the early ideas and enthusiasm to the practical challenges of making it work in a real clinical environment. If you're a SimTech educator or clinician thinking about running an in-situ simulation, hopefully this episode has given you some useful insights, reassurance, and maybe even the confidence to take the first step. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please follow and subscribe and feel free to reach out. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of the SimTech Podcast.